The new Lloyd Mr. Nissan is now in our temporary location. Find us in the Big Blue Building on Highway 16 West and shop indoors in comfort all winter long. Walk through over 100 new and pre-owned vehicles under one big roof. And right now at the new Lloyd Mr. Nissan, you get free tires for life with your new or pre-owned purchase. Sales, parts, and service all in the Big Blue Building on Highway 16 West. The new Lloyd Mr. Nissan. We won't sell you a car, we'll help you buy one.
Local people. Local news and events. Local sports. Local matters. For all things Lloydminster area, this is Live with Kurt Price.
Hey, welcome inside the Canadian Brewhouse for another Tuesday night sports show. And once again, it's Taco Tuesdays here at the Canadian Brewhouse, where you can get great tasting tacos for $3.49 and great drink specials as well. And we want to remind you that tomorrow night is Wing Wednesday and Valentine's Day is just around the corner. And they have a great special for two here coming up on February the 14th as well. Lots to check out here at the Canadian Brewhouse, and I have a feeling this is going to be a busy place come February 6th when the Edmonton Oilers can tie that National Hockey League record for wins at 17. And then they play Anaheim, which is not a give me, but if there's a team you want to play in the NHL to set a record, it's probably this year's Anaheim Ducks. You catch all the Oiler action here at the Canadian Brewhouse. Now back at the new Lloyd Mr. Nissan, we are still in our temporary location. We will be there until April the 1st, and then we're moving into town to our gorgeous new location on Highway 17 South. But we're kind of enjoying being inside because it was so cold there for a while, and now it's just so messy outside. So it's nice to have the vehicles inside. We're not cleaning them all the time. So come out and have a look at what we have at the new Lloyd Mr. Nissan. Over 100 new and pre-owned vehicles, and I'll give you a little heads up here. At the end of the month, free tires for life ends. So get out there right now, and if you're looking for a Rogue, you can save on a Rogue right now as well. That's at the new Lloyd Mr. Nissan, temporary location on Highway 16 West. And it is messy out there. Like, it is so darn springy out there today, and in some cases, summery. The temperature today at Maple Creek hit 21 degrees. What? 21 degrees today in Maple Creek, Saskatchewan.
Holy.
Now, speaking of summer, our first guest is volunteer coordinator with the Saskatchewan Summer Games that are coming to Lloydminster this July, and that is Mr. Jason Whiting. So thanks for being here, Jason.
Hey, thanks. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me to talk about something that is really exciting for our community.
It absolutely is exciting. Now, Synergy Credit Union kicked this off with a $50,000 donation the other day. What does that mean for you guys?
Yeah, that's huge. So yesterday we did have the official announcement and also the official kickoff to opening up our database to start collecting volunteers. Synergy gave us a donation of $50,000 to go towards the games, and specifically the volunteers to assist with that. You know, it takes a lot of volunteers, but also takes a lot of money to run a game. So we appreciate the community support that Synergy has given us, and now it's up to us to put those dollars to good use and start accumulating and attracting volunteers to this event.
You have to clothe those volunteers as well.
Yeah, I got a crew of people on it. We're gonna have some shirts. We're gonna have some swag, and we're excited to get all these volunteers together and have a successful games.
Now, I talked to Diane Gow. She said there's a little bit of a party too.
Yeah, well, if Diane Gow is involved, there's definitely going to be some sort of party, some sort of appreciation and recognition. And right now, she's giving everybody a medal. everybody's getting a medal. They're getting a gold medal for just being awesome. Whoever signs up, whoever becomes out and volunteers is getting a medal, and rightfully so. Like, you can't have these games without having these volunteers, and so we want to thank and congratulate all the volunteers that have stepped up to help once the time comes.
Okay, how many volunteers are you looking for?
Somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200. So we know that is a large number, but it's also it's a number that we can easily do. We've hosted games, we've hosted events in Lloydminster previously, and the community always steps up. I don't think any of us are too worried about that. It is a daunting number, but we got some time to fill those spots, and I'm excited for getting all those volunteers together.
Well, you mentioned volunteers, and like somebody like Trevor Beaton. Trevor was mentioning, they have a lot of staff, love to volunteer at Synergy, so it does seem like a perfect time.
Yeah, there's already organizations that have said, when the time comes and you're ready, just let us know. We know the Lloydminster Sexual Assault Center, they reached out and said, yep, our group is ready to step forward. I know our Rotary Club, we have lots of volunteers already, and they will step up. Synovus, any of those big organizations are I think, excited to put their volunteers forward, and so as of tomorrow, we can start accepting those volunteers and start getting them into the database.
What kind of things are you going to be doing as a volunteer? Is there different levels?
And there's really a very diverse offering when it comes to roles and schedules and all that. The games are 7 days, July 21st to 28th. And there's a ton of options there, from parking to food to any one of the many sports that is involved. So you can be involved in specifically a sport. You could be, timekeepers. So there's a lot of different things, and hopefully something will spark your interest, and there's and something you'll want to sign up for.
So it's not just a matter of, hey, I'm going to open the door, or I'm going to keep people from going in this area. There's actually some high-level volunteers that are needed if you're running a stopwatch.
Yeah, exactly. There's, and like I said, so if what we're hoping for is those individuals that have a passion for canoeing or kayaking, that they'll be involved in that area. If somebody has a background in one of the sports, that they'll reach out to volleyball, or they'll reach out to baseball, and they'll get involved in that sport. And then there's also just, yes, there is security as well too, to make sure that our games are safe for everyone. These are youth that are coming to town, and there's a need for security. There's a need for transportation to move people around. There's a need for serving these 1,000+ youth that are coming here.
You get fed too at times?
These the comprehensive Lloydminster Comprehensive High School will be the area where the accommodations for all these youth. And we're still working out logistics on food and beverage, but it's either between there or the exhibition as to where they'll be served. So things are still in the works and in the planning stages. But you're going to need help serving. We're going to need help serving. All these, these are athletes that need a lot of food. Yeah.
How many people coming?
I believe it's 1,000 or so athletes.
Okay, and then they got parents.
And then parents are coming to town as well too. So this whole event is a great thing for our city. We get to showcase it. We also reap the benefits as well too of all these individuals and families coming to our Lloydminster to also shop while they're here, use our accommodations, use our restaurants and all that. So yeah, it'll be an exciting time.
So you said reach out just to get more information. Where do you go to get more information? And then how do you sign up? Yeah, so we do have a website, Saskatchewan Summer Games. I had it open. I don't have it open right now. But if you Google Saskatchewan Summer Games, you can add Lloydminster, you can add 2024. You should come up very quickly with that website. Somewhere in there, if not right away, is a tab about volunteers. Find that volunteer page. That'll take you right there to a form where you can fill out and start entering in your contact information. And that's step one. Step two will be a confirmation email at some point asking you, and this is important, asking you to get a criminal record check. Because we do want, like I said, we do want these games to be very safe for our youth. So we're asking that everybody get a criminal record check, and ideally
a vulnerable sector check. We want the flexibility to use any one of our volunteers for those roles that might need a vulnerable sector check. If you're working around youth in accommodations or anywhere, we hopefully get everybody with a vulnerable sector check. Now, it does take a little bit of time. I did it here recently just to do a test, and it took about 10 to 20 minutes, depending on you do have to go into the RCMP, the municipal detachment here in Lloyd, fill out a couple forms, provide 2 pieces of ID. But the good news is all that cost is covered by the RCMP and the City of Lloydminster. There is no expense to getting your criminal record check or vulnerable sector check, so that's a good thing. And it's just your time, which we're asking for both at there and during the games. So,
is there a place when you fill out what, like, you're saying, yeah, I want to volunteer? Is there a question like what you'd be more comfortable doing, sort of thing?
For the games,
like, I would be more comfortable working in security. I would be more comfortable working around food. I would be comfortable as some sort of official.
Yes, eventually. Right now we're getting the database filled with volunteers, and then as we get closer to the games, our team will be entering in shifts. We'll be entering in, and actually I do think as it stands now there is maybe an area where you can put your interests. So if you are interested in just sports or security or mascots.
Or mascots,
you could be a mascot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there is that spot. Now that you say it, I do think you can add some interests in there, and that will give us an opportunity to kind of, push you in a direction that might be of a benefit to yourself and everybody.
Once you're signed up, what happens?
So then once you're signed up, you've gone through the criminal record check. That'll go back. And then I guess the next step will be waiting for the database to open up further with that scheduling. And that'll come, we're hoping, early June, something like that, maybe late June. It all depends. It's a little bit, the sports themselves don't get officially structured until a little bit later in the season, so that we know who's coming, what team, what's playing, when, and all that sort of stuff. So that's kind of the piece that will come closer to the games. But outside of that, you'll get that email. Then we have a little bit of training. So we'll have training like the Lakeland College. We'll do a bit of just short training for our volunteers. And then the Thursday before the games, we will have a volunteer kickoff party, which will be, it'll be a party. It'll be, not a huge party, but it'll be something where we can kind of come together, gather, and get that those last pieces. So you get your name badge, your swag bag, your medal for being a volunteer, and then we'll have a successful games.
I kind of remember that from, was it 20? What was the last time we hosted? 2008?
Yeah,
2010, somewhere in there.
7, 10, no, 8. And I know the Alberta Games was in 97.
No, there was. Well, it might have been 97.
Well, 97 was the Alberta Games that we hosted. I remember.
Yeah, I remember that one. I was working at a restaurant. Speaking of restaurants, here at the Canadian Brewhouse, that it was crazy.
Yeah.
Like that whole week in the restaurant was crazy.
Yeah, I'm excited for just the busyness of that week. July is going to be, for our community, July is going to be a busy time. Well, this whole year actually is going to be busy, but we got summer games coming in late. We got a turnaround at our upgrader. We have
NACC's back again this year.
Back.
That's been announced.
Something else too, wasn't it? What was that? I can't think of it right now, but
there's a lot going on. And I remember when we did, I was a volunteer, and I was kind of in charge of getting the community interest, and we had canoe races on Bud Miller.
Oh man, you
when the Saskatchewan summer, and it was me and Shane, and we tipped a canoe. That's the one we went for a swim and Bud Miller, and I've never been sicker in my life. By the way,
I keep remembering that story when we talk about Bud Miller, and I go, I don't know.
The rescue squad pulled us out. That's how much fun that was. What am I forgetting to ask about volunteering?
What else? I think that we've covered a lot here, and I think we've got I got a gist of it, and now it's just we'll be talking more about this. I hope you'll invite us, either not as maybe myself or somebody else on to talk about the summer games again as we get closer and closer to it. We're less than 6 months. We're 5+ months away from these games, and it only gets a little bit more interesting from here on in. And looking forward to.
One of the things I remembered I was going to ask. One of the things I was going to ask is, like, if you volunteer for, can you volunteer for a day? Do you have to volunteer for the whole week?
There's kind of a minimum. I forget what it is, but we do want, in order to be, an official volunteer, to get the T-shirt, to get the medal, to get the swag. We want at least something. I can't remember, at least a couple shifts, or and
more than just an hour.
More than just showing up for an hour, and So. I don't remember what that is off the top of my mind, but yeah, I know that most will be more than, I know there's lots of individuals that are already, I'm sure they'll be volunteering every single day, and putting their time in, and it's just how, some of these community members, these people that we know, our mutual friends, are going to be out there hardcore volunteering. So.
Probably 2 to 3 events.
Yeah.
All week.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, Jason.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll let you know about BioClean Disaster Services. BioClean Disaster Services is local, and when there's fire, flood, I can't believe we're talking about burst pipes now, but it was minus 51 here 2 weeks ago.
For a little
and
while.
The city, the community had a lot of burst pipes. There was a lot of
the pool
problems.
Had a burst pipe.
Yeah, I know from talking to BioClean Aquatic Center had a burst pipe, and I know from talking to Sharon and Jody that they were really busy with that.
Yeah.
And if you have something happen to you and your family, what you want is a local company, and you want somebody who's going to take care of your possessions. You want somebody going to take care of your property. You want somebody who's going to keep you up to date along the way while they're making these repairs to your home or your business. They're going to do just that. But more than that, they're going to take care of you and your family. That's what matters. Family is what matters, and getting you back to where you were before the disaster is what really matters. And I appreciate that they're local. I appreciate that their name is on the BioClean Aquatic Center. 1-833-246-8326 for BioClean Disaster Services. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk with Brenden Escott, and we're going to talk about that big Oilers streak and adding a piece while they're on this streak. And we're also going to get into a really big topic of discussion in Edmonton right now, and that's who the quarterback of the Edmonton Elks is going to be in 2024. We'll come right back.
Hi, my name is Ben Harrison. I'm a librarian at Lakeland College and chair of the Downtown Area Redevelopment Committee. My desire is to help Lloydminster to be a prosperous community where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. That is why I am running for City Council in the February 13th by-election. To find out more about what I stand for, please visit benharrisonforcitycouncil.com.
At Lloydminster and District Co-op, membership matters more. Because being part of a co-op means you're connected to something bigger than yourself. From long-held legacy by those who built our communities, to people you call family, friends, and neighbors. When you're a Lloyd Co-op member, you're an owner in a local business that prides itself on purpose alongside profit. You earn cash back, you help support causes that matter most, and you're building a better way of life for the next generation. Membership matters more.
Our guest is the producer of 630 Chad's Oilers Now, and he's also the host of the Elks Radio Network. And this is Brenden Escott, and we are glad to have him. Of course, you may recognize him. Spent a lot of time, well, I wouldn't say a lot of time, a little bit of time in Lloydminster at the at CITL and CKSA TV. Brenden, great to have you.
Always a pleasure to join you guys. Thanks, Kurt.
Let's start with the Oilers. I'm really excited to talk Elks too, because it hasn't been a slow offseason in football, that's for sure, for the CFL. And we'll talk a little bit, I'll get your picks for the Super Bowl as well, but let's start with the heater that the Oilers are on and everything that has gone right. Nothing was going right at the beginning of the year. The biggest change people might look at from the outside is that the goaltending has stepped up. But in reality, is it the goaltending, Brenden, or is it the defense?
Well, it's the chicken and the egg conversation right now. Let me tell you, It's been an awesome conversation to have because along with it has come 16 consecutive victories, and in a manner that I'm not so sure Oilers fans are used to seeing them win. The goaltending has held them in games that in years past or even earlier this year, I really don't think that it would have. And so now you've got that last save that you need. I think that they weren't getting maybe in previous games. And that's because they're playing so sound defensively in front of either goaltender. It isn't just Stuart Skinner that's having success. Calvin Pickard's up to 5 wins in his own right now, coming on for this Oilers group. So you can't just say that it's been the starting goaltender stealing victories. He's absolutely slammed the door shut, but I think that he's been able to a lot easier because of the style that this Oilers team is playing. The grade A scoring chances that we saw them surrendering hasn't really been as many of those. Odd man rushes going back the other way. Same thing. They've really limited that kind of opportunity for the opponents. So credit not only the goaltending, but certainly the way that things are being coached on the defensive side. Really, who knew Paul Coffey had that in him?
Well, exactly. That's okay. They step up, they get Corey Perry. You and I on this program said he would be a perfect fit for the Edmonton Oilers. Before the season even started, I think we said Corey Perry would be the perfect fit. He's kind of he's what they need, isn't he?
100% he is. This to me is another Duncan Keith-esque addition to the Oilers roster, which is just as important in game 83 as it is in getting them that far. So what we've seen already is a big-bodied forward. We know he's a menace to play against. Anybody that's watched him in the playoffs over the last 13, 14 years now. He's been around a long time. You know what the standard is from him. And we got to see that in the very first game on a line with Dylan Holloway and Ryan McLeod. Lots of speed there that he's contending, I guess, with keeping up with. But you get those 3 inside the opponent's faceoff dot and below, and suddenly you've got 3 very big bodies cycling you to death. And there's some offensive prowess there as well. So I think that everything that Perry brings to this group, as you say, Kurt, it's been something that we've been looking for in the bottom part of the roster for years now. And you can only have so many Derek Ryans. All due respect to Sam Gagner and what he's been able to do, Papa Clutch, they call him. But in reality, when the clock strikes midnight and the games get into the weeds, I want Corey Perry suiting up in orange and blue, and he's looked pretty good in that initial game.
So all the talk around Edmonton will be they're going to add yet before the trade deadline, and the goaltending talk has pretty much gone away. I'm not sure they need a goaltender now. There's lots of talk about bringing Broberg up and maybe moving Brett Kulak out. What do you see the Oilers needing? Because there's always the need for more centermen.
100%. And to me right now, they're doing some experimenting to find out how much they can get out of, say, Dylan Holloway at that third line center position. Maybe Ryan McLeod, although he is really demonstrating to me that he is much better suited for the wing than he is for the center position. Enter Sean Monahan. If you're me, this is the guy that Edmonton needs to go out and get. Bigger body, high draft pedigree, but we don't remember much about him recently because he's had 2 bum hips. Well, he cleaned those up in the offseason, and with Montreal, not only is he producing offensively again, but to me, he's bringing all those elements of that third line center game that could really help push Edmonton over the top. So when you look at all this and see that he's only making $2.8 million off the top of my head, it could be fairly inexpensive to acquire Monahan. And really, I think that's the type of player who could ultimately push this team past a Vegas or a Colorado. They're just a McLeod or a Holloway. So to spend all of the money, and do you go get an Elias Lindholm from down the QE2? Or do you find something in the bargain bin and maybe unearth a resurfaced Sean Monahan, for example? I think that that's probably the route that they're going to take. And now they've got a little over a month and a half to decide that.
So can you believe we're going to have to wait till February 6th to see if they tie this record? I mean, how painful is that for Oiler fans?
Is it more painful for the fans or for the players who now have to sit there for 9 days and twiddle their thumbs and
Well, I
really a
don't
good
know. I went to the bank this morning, and before I was in, two people had said to me, "Can you believe we got to wait till February 6th?" So
it's amazing, right? And so I think that now is a good time. You don't want to hit that. You don't want to hit the breaking up to dwell on the fact that you squandered the opportunity at this streak, or 15 gamer, let's say, and then you sit and wonder why you weren't able to extend it. So this is the third time already this year, when you consider some random bye week in December and then Christmas as well, where the Oilers have been absolutely rolling and then kind of hit this stop sign, this dead end in the road. And each time previous, they've been just fine in terms of re-emerging from that break and being able to throw the foot right back down on the gas pedal. So I'm confident that they'll be able to get this done, and particularly against Vegas. There's no doubt in my mind about them getting up for that Vegas game. But yeah, that's a long layoff for everybody to be like, hey, history is calling, and it's calling pretty loudly come February 6th.
and February 6th, you'll be able to see that game here at the Canadian Brewhouse, by the way. Okay, let's talk about the Eskimos. Because, the Elks. That's I always do that, so I apologize. But let's talk about the Elks. It has been a crazy offseason in Edmonton. How much did it surprise you that they went out and got McLeod Bethel Thompson?
Honestly, I think that this is a Chris Jones trying to save one last year worth of Chris Jones in green and gold. And you see an opportunity to go out and sign a player who has CFL experience, who's led the team or the league in passing, a most outstanding player. The reasons on the surface are obvious. What shook everybody to the core in Edmonton is you finally had a future of the franchise here. It's been years and years since somebody had electrified the market like Trey Ford did. So why are you throwing a roadblock up in the way of that? That's the great debate. And the answer to that question is that Trey Ford may well not be ready to lead this team to a Grey Cup in his third year of being a CFL quarterback. And that's perfectly reasonable. So you bring in a McLeod Bethel Thompson who's got that proven leadership and expertise and that sort of thing. But I really hope that this doesn't force the hand of Trey Ford to say, well, if you don't value me, somebody else is going to. You looked around at the CFL last year, Kurt, and every team could have used another quarterback. So it kind of makes sense why Edmonton would want to fortify that situation. But also, if you're Trey Ford looking around somewhere else and see that, in fact, there is a clearer avenue, let's say, to reps, then you got to wonder, did the apple cart get upset by the move of bringing in a day one starter? And not only did they bring in McLeod Bethel Thompson, but of course now they're bringing in pieces that are directly suited to him, like Curly Gittins Jr. So they're trying to go for it this year, and they've dubbed McLeod Bethel Thompson the man. It doesn't mean we're not going to see Trey Ford at some points, be it an exotic package or due to injury. That's just kind of how things go. But I was quite surprised, and I remain guarded as to how quarterback of the future is going to handle this.
When we look at what is happening now in Edmonton with Macbeth being in Edmonton, he's there. Is Trey Ford there? Because we keep hearing that Macbeth is working with Jarius Jackson right now. So does that fact alone, that he's working with Jarius Jackson, that Macbeth is there, is Trey Ford there? And is that something that maybe, because we've heard Chris Jones say his work ethic, is that maybe part of this? Let's go out and get somebody who's committed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And I think that driving that internal competition is something that any team, any professional sports team is theoretically going to benefit from. So from that standpoint, I understand where Chris Jones is at. I can't confirm whether Trey's in town or not. I haven't seen him down at the facilities or anything. But that's the exact type of impact, Kurt, that Chris Jones is striving for here. Here's Trey, what you need to do if you think you're the most outstanding player in the league, I'll bring one of those in and you can watch him lift lift weights and you can watch him interact with his receivers and you can do all this stuff. Got to be in the building to do that though, right? So
Yeah.
I expect, put it this way, we expected a quarterback competition at this year's camp, but we expected that to be favoring Trey Ford as he battled it out with Taylor Cornelius. Now the incumbent is basically being told you're the understudy for another year unless you can prove to us otherwise. And they spent a lot of money on that starter. So I really hope that the attitude portion of this for Trey is handled correctly, because it could go a really nice direction, but it could also totally dissolve the relationship between this player and this club.
Well, the other question becomes in Edmonton, who's going to rush the other team's quarterback? Now that Jake Ceresna is gone, AC Leonard hasn't signed yet. Are they just that confident in their ability to teach or to find talent?
Recruiting is certainly the name of Chris Jones's game, right? And to see Ceresna be the one that goes the other direction, I get that you've got to make the money work, but in a year that there was a lot of turmoil, Ceresna realistically was one of, if not the leader on that team, certainly on the defensive side of the ball. So that's going to be a real tough gap to fill. Sean Oakman is somebody that I've heard talked about, big 6'9", former Baylor Bear, and of course, another winner with Toronto back a couple of years back in McLeod Bethel Thompson's teammates. So is that an option? He's certainly been somebody. I mean, he's imposing enough, but there's going to be, let's say, February 13th and free agent frenzy. They're going to have to really do some shoring up of that side of the ball, because you don't just replace somebody like Jake Ceresna. You don't.
It's funny you mentioned Oakman, because we're hearing that name in Saskatchewan too. So there's a guy that is definitely coveted. I love free agency in the CFL. I love that you can tamper for a week, I guess, before the free agency market opens. But it's hard to say where the Eskimos are at, because they've signed a lot of their free agents, but it's younger players that they've signed, so you don't get a feeling of going forward exactly who's going to be on that football team.
The biggest thing that we needed to see changed was less attention on the people that are getting the ball thrown to them, and maybe more attention paid or more money spent on the guys that are keeping the quarterback upright. To me, that was the biggest weakness for Edmonton last year, is how do you go about improving the offensive line? They brought Brett Boyko in midway through the season and then got him re-signed here. So that's shored up for sure. But in reality, I mean, you look at this team and there's a whole bunch of different directions that they can go, so long as we're confident in the man making these decisions. So this is where perhaps there's a bit of a disconnect, because we know this is year 3 of Chris Jones, and in this second stint, he's amassed 8 wins. So if things stumble out of the gate and he's made all these decisions to sign players that align with his philosophy, and then he's gone, and now what happens, right? So I wonder how much autonomy he's going to have in terms of that, or if G. Roy Simon is going to have a bigger voice in terms of who they bring in and what kind of regime they have here, just in case there's a downloading process needed at some point. But overall, I think we saw too much money allocated to wide receivers last year, and none of them could get the ball at certain points because the quarterback was being flushed out of the pocket or sat down on his butt.
Let's talk NFL too. Let's look ahead to Super Bowl, February 11th. San Francisco opens as favorites. Not huge favorites, but they open as favorites. That in itself surprises me. Can anybody beat Mahomes and Swift?
Oh, they're fun to watch. That play that took 9 seconds from the snap until Travis Kelce's unbelievable catch, that off-script play in the championship game. I mean, it's an example of the magic that these two can assemble. So I think that maybe it's as much of the people's Super Bowl right now with these two teams as it is anything else. Everybody's going to be tuned in for the Swift and Kelce aspect. But the 49ers, I actually had the chance to see them live in Arizona this year, and holy smokes, that fan base, we were outnumbered probably 60 or 70 to 30. It was bang, bang, Niner gang is excited for this year, Kurt, and there's a lot of reason for it. Who would have thought Mr. Irrelevant is the guy that has all the composure in the world to just be dissecting defenses at the highest level. And then the weaponry around him isn't bad either, even before you look at Christian McCaffrey, right? So I think that the 49ers could well be in line defensive-wise. On paper, this is the 49ers Super Bowl. But you never know what kind of magic is in the air when Taylor Swift is in the house. Actually, you know what? I say that, and then I think she's going back on tour. She might not even be in Vegas on the 11th of February.
Yeah, they're wondering if she's going to fly back from Japan for the actual, I think it's Japan, for the actual Super Bowl.
That sounds about right.
Okay, before I let you go, I got to ask you about that red Yofa.
Oh, hilarious. Family heirloom. This is the old man's bucket. I guess where is it? It's over that side.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not certified for use as an inline helmet, an ice helmet, or anything else, but Wayne wore one. He wore it in blue. I've got it in red, so we keep it displayed there. Absolutely spectacular. And I know the old man was pretty happy when he saw I had it on display too.
Brenden, thanks so much for doing this. Really, really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Kurt.
It's back in 2018 already that Brenden Escott worked here in Lloydminster at CKSA CITL TV, and it's always good to catch up with him and get his takes. I know there's a lot of people that would like to see Lindholm, but he and I both think Monahan would be a much cheaper choice for those Edmonton Oilers. And what's going to catch all the Oiler games here at the Canadian Brewhouse. And we remind you that with Valentine's Day coming up, the Canadian Brewhouse has dinner for two on February 14th, a fantastic and delicious surf and turf dinner for two with a sirloin steak and blackened shrimp and all of the nice vegetables and a bottle of red or white wine to go with that as well. So Valentine's Day coming up, make your plans. Just $69.99 here at the Canadian Brewhouse for a dinner for two. Now, we also want to remind you about Superior Water. Superior Water specializes in nothing but water, and with over 22 years in the business, they're proud and confident that their water and their service is superior, and I can vouch for them. For iron filters, water softeners, reverse osmosis distillers, chlorine removal, and H2S odor removal, give Superior Water a call, 780-875-6636. You can visit their 57th Avenue location right beside Sheepskin Loft and stay hydrated with pure, clean water. I drink Superior Water because I like the taste, and I believe it is superior. So we've gotten the Edmonton Elks point of view. Now with free agency looming on February the 13th and the official tampering season just around the corner, we're going to find out from Britton Gray from the Green Zone on CJME and 650 CKOM what the Riders might be looking at this coming free agent season. We'll be right back.
I'm Brian Zinchuk of PipelineOnline.ca. I used to be a pipeliner, and I've spent the last 15 years reporting on energy in Saskatchewan. PipelineOnline.ca provides comprehensive coverage of light oil, heavy oil, lithium, helium, power production including coal, wind, solar, geothermal, natural gas, and nuclear. There's a lot happening in Saskatchewan's energy sector, and Pipeline Online is there for all of it. No one else comes even close.
It's more than just taxes at LNA CPA. Assurance, accounting, retirement planning, estate planning, business consulting, financial consulting, farm program support, and bookkeeping. But yes, there is always taxes. The team at LNA CPA is committed to helping you achieve your best results and will be there to assist you every step of the way. LNA CPA, with offices in Provost, Vermilion, and Lloydminster.
At Jason Arden & Associates Cooperators, we're proud to be a top-rated local insurance company that offers flexible solutions and expert advice for all your insurance and investment needs. We'll work with you to tailor your insurance specific to your needs, and we offer investment advice that always puts you first. At Cooperators, one of our core values is to give back to the communities that we live in. Thanks to the support of our clients in Lloydminster and area, in 2023, Jason Arden & Associates has donated $40,000 to local nonprofits, charities, students, athletes, and other special events. How does your insurance company support our community?
Our guest is Britton Gray. You hear him on, this area would be a 650 CKOM, but also in Regina on CJME. And it is great to be joined by Britton Gray, who covers the Rough Riders and also is a part of Football at 4, if you listen to the Green Zone, and has hosted the Green Zone from time to time as well. And Britton, I follow you on Twitter as well. And I, of course, really enjoy your coverage of the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. So thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Looking forward to talk some football. It's middle of the long CFL offseason, so always excited about this opportunity.
Well, we should mention you just got back from Calgary. You went to watch Bedard, and of course he was hurt.
Yes.
So you couldn't catch up with him. So I take it you'll be going to another game.
I would like to eventually get out to another game, just see him, just because of the talent he is, right? When was the last time we've seen an 18-year-old this hyped up? It's Connor McDavid, right? So, and I just appreciate good hockey. And let me tell you, right now, Chicago's not a great hockey team. They are definitely rebuilding. So hopefully maybe next year or 2 years, that's a team that's built around them. And then you can see some real high-end stuff going on.
So we're getting back to CFL. We're about 2 weeks away from free agency, but in the CFL, you get this week to kind of have some fun, and that starts right away here, where you can talk to other teams' free agents. It's basically a legal tampering time in the CFL. But before we get into what's going to happen with that time, I want to ask you how surprised you were, Britton, to see the Rough Riders sign a backup quarterback not named Jake Dolegala.
I was very surprised just because of what we saw from Jake Dolegala. And yeah, he was the quarterback during the 7-game losing streak, but that team had given up in that locker room. They were ready to get to the offseason. And so with Mason Fine, I've always just felt like we see where his ceiling is at. And Dolegala's ceiling just felt higher. It doesn't look like Mason Fine has the same ceiling. Now, the floor might be safer, and there is clearly a mindset in the Riders' front office, and I guess around the league, that Mason Fine does bring a lot of good things to the table, that he's not as turnover prone as maybe Jake Dolegala was, because Jake, big arm, gunslinging quarterback, you kind of take the turnovers as they come with quarterbacks like that. So I say these opportunities, if I'm criticizing you, prove me wrong. Mason Fine, go out there, prove that I am wrong in my assessment. But just from what I've seen, it was just felt like Jake Dolegala had earned the extension last year.
Does that mean that Jake won't be back? Can we assume he's not coming back?
It's not a for sure thing. I think this makes me believe that at least Jake will see what other opportunities are out there, especially because he would want a bit of a pay raise, right? He started some games. He has CFL starting experience, kind of want to get off that rookie deal he would have been on coming to the CFL. So it's not impossible for them to bring them all back, but why would you? What did this quarterback room kind of indicate that all of them deserve to be brought back? Shea Patterson is still under contract, and so they have him back. They re-sign Mason Fine. Antonio Pipkin gets traded for. They sign him. So it does make a lot of sense to bring back the entire room, and it feels like they made a decision. Now, in saying that, maybe they do eventually reach a deal. I'll never say never, but it felt like this was the team going in the Mason Fine direction rather than the Jake Dolegala one.
How has Jeremy O'Day done in signing his own free agents?
A little slow. I know I've had some people reach out to me, ask me what's going on, like where's the news? It was kind of just patience, right? There's the new coaching staff. They have to kind of assess things. They have to make decisions about where they want to go. They have to interview these players and get to know them a little bit. So that's why I think as we get closer, we're going to see 2 to 3 signings per day, which has kind of been what the Riders have been doing for the most part. They announce one in the morning, another one in the afternoon, and they're getting the job done. But I mean, with another 6-12 season, changes are coming. They came last year on the offensive side of the ball. That was pretty much a whole new offense that got wheeled out. This year, expecting more changes on the defensive side, but they did bring back Roland Milligan. He was coming back, and getting him back healthy is going to be a key. Reports are, as we're recording this, Dan Ralph with the Canadian Press has said Anthony Lanier II has signed a contract extension. Sources are telling him that. So it's been a slow process, and Nelson Lacombo signs today. So it's getting done. And I personally, when I looked at this team last year, I agreed that it felt like this was a talented team. They beat the BC Lions. They beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I thought the coaching philosophy and the way that locker room was dealing with adversity wasn't there. So I think that this team, if they bring back a lot of players, will be good, but we'll see what changes come. And there's some names who haven't signed with the Toronto Argonauts that you start to look at with Corey Mace coming over. Maybe they come over and kind of refresh that Riders defense.
Have the Riders done too good of a job selling Corey Mace? Expectations are through the roof this year. Is that because they've done such a great job of selling him to their fan base?
It's not just them selling him, but it's Corey Mace being like how personable he is. He just comes across as a fiery individual. And this is kind of when you heard he was interviewing for the job, that's really what gave him a leg up on some of the other competition. Was as soon as you talk to this guy, his personality is so infectious, and you can tell why every player you talk to who's played for him says they would literally run through a wall for Corey Mace. And it does come down to selling, and I know some people have said that we haven't criticized the team enough for this hiring first-time head coach. The Riders need to get back to the playoffs, and I can't say how it's going to go, but that's kind of where you can have this positivity, is that Corey Mace doesn't come with any head coaching baggage. That comes, of course, with a lack of experience, but I have no idea. I say, get to me in week 5. I'll tell you how this team is looking under Corey Mace at that point, but right now, why not just view it as a fresh start, a guy who looks like he's going to command the locker room, and go from there, because it's all hypothetical. We have no idea who even is going to be on this team yet. So,
well, one guy that Rider fans would love to have back is Sean Bain Jr. Is there any word on Sean Bain Jr., or is it he's going to test?
Nothing yet. Part of me thinks he's going to test because of just kind of where he had a great season last year. That comes with a pay raise. Where does that kind of line up with the Riders? I don't know. They bring back a Brayden Lenius. Obviously, Sam Emilis's emergence last year helps this team. Keane Schaefer-Baker will be back for the full year. I would think a deal gets done, because with a talent like Sean Bain Jr., you very rarely just let them walk through the door. But it's Mark Mueller. He knows who Sean Bain Jr. is. He was on that Calgary coaching staff. He knows exactly what type of player he is. And so here comes the assessment. And so I haven't heard yet when they're close, but when I look at some of the wide receiver market, we'll see exactly how that goes. It might be waiting for Dalton Schoen to sign, right? Because Dalton Schoen's going to set the kind of wide receiver market this year. Maybe Sean Bain, and I don't know, this is all speculation, but one thing they could be doing is wait to see what Dalton Schoen sign, and then maybe that gives you a little bit more money. Maybe the Riders are waiting to see what Dalton Schoen signs for, if even he's available, before they decide what they want to pay Sean Bain. There's a lot of moving parts when you have a guy who clearly has been one of the best receivers in the league, if not the best, going to the market, because everyone else is really paying attention to what his contract ends up being before they get to their people at that position.
Well, you brought up that they could be waiting. I think a lot of Rider fans were surprised to see Frankie Hickson signed before Jamal Morrow, but there's a big running back in Winnipeg that will be looking for a big pay raise as well. Do you see a situation where he leaves Winnipeg? We're talking Brady Oliveira.
Brady Oliveira, yes. Yeah. I mean, there's always a situation. It's just to leave your hometown team like that with the success they've had, unless it is for an NFL job, I just don't know what you could ask for. I don't know how much money could you in theory ask for where it becomes too much to keep you there? Because from a marketing perspective, I'm the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. What better guy to market around than Brady Oliveira, who's from there? I mean, there's a situation, sure. Like, I can't speak and 100% guarantee he's back, because, I mean, absolutely, he could go there, and Ottawa could give him a ton of money. So somewhere else all of a sudden has a lot of money they give him, and maybe that's what he wants to do, because even though, yeah, he's from Winnipeg, he's a pro athlete. Get your money when you can. I always say that about pro athletes. I will never speak ill of a pro athlete for getting the best possible deal for themselves, because there's such a short window of time for you to make that money. So we'll see what happens with Brady Oliveira. The name I'm kind of looking at is another Toronto name, AJ Ouellette. What's going on with him? Does he re-sign? When I look at running backs, now Jamal Morrow had a great season last year. He's dynamic. He can catch the ball. He will find a job if it's not with the Riders somewhere. But when I look at the running backs Mark Mueller has had, Kadeem Carey, who Corey Mace has seen, AJ Ouellette, those are big bruising backs, which Jamal Morrow wasn't. It feels like that's kind of the prototype back that they want for their offense, is a bruiser. And so that's another thing where I think kind of with the Riders, they're waiting to see what happens here. If AJ Ouellette goes to the market, there's a good chance that the Riders are involved because of the coaches that came over from Toronto, Corey Mace, and just being a bruising back, which is when I look at a Mark Mueller offense, that's what he's used in Kadeem Carey.
Well, and Kadeem Carey's out there too with Calgary signing Mills. That you never know. He could be making his way to Regina as well. Is there a signing, Britton, that has gone under the radar in Saskatchewan?
Under the radar, because the Riders are still very much the Logan Ferland signing. I think he's someone who they continue to build around the offensive line. He continues to take steps, and I know the offensive line has got a lot of spotlight on them because of how bad they've been recently, but Logan Ferland has been a bright spot. And then Brett Lothar, having a great kicker in the league is a positive. And he dealt with an injury last year, which really affected his ability last year to kick long kicks early in the season. And he's been so clutch for them. And those are positions that you never really put a lot of thought into because they're not always the sexy positions. But they're the positions that, when it comes down to it, are really key. And Brett Lothar coming back, I think, is huge for this Riders team. 3-year deal. You don't have to worry about the kicker position. You hope you don't have to worry about the kicker position now and can send Brett out there to kick 55-plus yarders for 3 points.
February 13th is going to be an interesting day in Saskatchewan. It's going to be a fun day. The other day that we're looking forward to in February is February 11th. The 49ers open as favorites, Britton. Are you surprised by that?
No, because for whatever reason, despite the fact that no one can beat them, no one wants to give Kansas City the respect they probably deserve at this point. We talk about them not having a number one wide receiver. Travis Kelce's their number one wide receiver. He's putting up number one wide receiver numbers as a tight end. And then they kind of just, what I really like about Kansas City and Andy Reid, what they've done this year is they've adjusted their identity. We think of Patrick Mahomes' teams as high-flying, score a lot of points through the air, 500-yard games, 4 touchdowns. This year, they're a power running team that relies on their defense. And when the push comes to shove, you have Patrick Mahomes there to make a play when needed. And so I get the I don't want to say disrespect, but I get why people have counted them out. But no, I'm in the thinking, until they've been beaten, how can I pick against them at this point? They continue to beat the Bills, a great team. The Ravens, a great team on the road. And it's just another week. It's another week, another Super Bowl for Kansas City. So they are old hat by this point at that championship game.
Britton, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you being generous with it, and we look forward to seeing more of you this year with the rider with the Green Zone.
Looking forward to it, and so let's get back to playoff football, huh? Get Saskatchewan some playoff football. I like playoff games; those are fun to cover.
You know what? Let's just see a win in the second half of the season.
You're right. Let's just get a win in September or October. Let's see the Riders do that. Or they won Labor Day, so I guess not September, but October. Yeah, that's a key month.
Thanks, Britton.
Not a problem.
How can you help support the oil and gas industry and jobs in Western Canada? The answer is closer than you think. Sell your scrap metals to PWM Steel. PWM sells scrap iron to Evraz, located in Regina. Evraz's #1 customer is the energy sector, building pipes and plates for the oil and gas industry. PWM Steel is your locally owned metal recycler and steel service center in the area. Plus, they're a strong supporter of the community. PWM Steel, your top steel supplier for Alberta and Saskatchewan for 40 years.
At Diamond 7 Meats, we work with local farm families to provide a high-quality product and a great selection for you. Try our mouth-watering smokies, pulled pork, roast beef, and more, made pure and natural with no additives or fillers. We offer custom processing, and our experienced team works for you to provide a selection of sausage, burgers, and jerkies made to your specifications. Take your grilling to the next level with a Yoder smoker. Complete the grilling experience with a Canadian-made, award-winning line of House of Q barbecue sauces. We're locally owned and operated, and we look forward to seeing you today.
Welcome back to the Canadian Brewhouse, where it's Taco Tuesday today. $3.49 tacos. That's beef, chicken, fish, ordinaire tacos, and they are fantastic, by the way. I couple myself here tonight, and they have buckets of Corona on special as well. And coming up in just a few minutes, we get the Raptors and the Bulls on the big screen here at the Canadian Brewhouse. Now, it's a crazy time in the AJHL. I did ask Nigel Dubé if he'd be interested in coming on and talking to us us about what is happening with the 5 teams in the AJHL going to the BCHL next year, and then the schedule conflicts that have come up since those teams are not playing other teams anymore, and he declined, and I appreciate that. I know that there's going to be some legal ramifications and that kind of stuff happening with that, but he just said, you know what, take a step back from that. I'm not prepared to talk about it right now, and I certainly understand that. But what comes with that for local people now is you really have to check schedule on what is happening with the Bobcats. Last Wednesday there was a game canceled, so they have 2 games coming up this weekend. So Friday night they're at home to the Olds Grizzlies. That's a 7 o'clock game, and then Saturday night they're right back on the ice with the Canmore Eagles, and that is a 7 o'clock game as well. They're on the road here tomorrow night. You'll notice that we didn't talk about the All-Star game tonight. There was no mention of the All-Star game this weekend happening in Toronto, and the reason for that is I hate the All-Star game. I find it so boring. It just goes on and nobody hits, and yeah, I can't handle it. I may be interested in the drafting of the players this year, but as far as the All-Star game goes, let's get it over with, and then 1 week from tonight, find out if the Edmonton Oilers can tie that record. That's what everybody is interested in. So we're back with you tomorrow. Thursday, sorry. We're back with you Thursday, and we'll be with you at 10 a.m., and we're going to be talking to Tammy Dick at the Lloydminster Exhibition about Ag Revisions this year. Ag Revisions 2024 coming your way February 14th to 15th. That's on the way. We also remind you that we have teamed up with Richardson's Jewelry and Spiros to bring you a love story contest in which you can tell your love story and win a $100 gift certificate to Spiros. And that is coming up with 3 shows in February. We'll also be back here at the Canadian Brewhouse in February, where we'll likely be talking football again, with the Super Bowl will be over by that time, and free agency will be well underway, coming your way on February the 20th here from the Canadian Brewhouse. But we hope you'll join us tonight for the Bulls and the Raptors, and of course Taco Tuesday, and don't forget that Valentine's special for 2, just $69.99 here at the Canadian Brewhouse for February 14th. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.